Whispers between stars. Freya Nakamura had never expected to hear voices in the void between stars. As the Terran Diplomatic Corps' youngest xenolinguistic specialist, she was accustomed to silence during interstellar travel. But 3 days into the journey toward humanity's most significant first contact mission, the whispers began. "You're hearing things," Director Price told her during their daily briefing. "Pre-mission jitters. We all get them," but the whispers persisted, becoming clearer as their ship approached the neutral meeting point where Earth's representatives would encounter the Kurlans, a species whose existence humanity had only confirmed 6 months ago. "They're not random sounds," Freya insisted to her colleague Tenzin as they reviewed xenobiology reports. "Their syntax, emotion, it feels like someone reaching out." Tenzin's dark eyes narrowed with concern. "The psych evaluation is mandatory for a reason, Freya. Maybe you should—" "I'm not cracking under pressure," she snapped, then immediately regretted her tone. "Sorry, but what if it's them? What if they're trying to communicate before we arrive?" That night alone in her quarters, Freya closed her eyes and focused on the whispers. "I hear you," she thought deliberately. "Who are you?" The response came not in words, but images, crystalline structures floating in a violet sea. Strange symbols pulsing with light, and mesmerizing eyes with vertical pupils surrounded by iridescent blue. The next morning, she woke drenched in sweat, her terminal flashing with an urgent message. The Kurulan delegation had arrived early and requested immediate contact with their human counterparts. "This is highly irregular," Director Price fumed as the diplomatic team assembled. "We had protocols in place, scheduled approaches, safety measures." "Maybe they're impatient," suggested Pavel. "Their security chief? Or maybe they already know us better than we think?" Freya murmured when she stepped onto the observation deck. The Kurulan ship came into view, organic curves of blue-black material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, beautiful and unsettling simultaneously. "Opening communications channel," announced the ship's AI. The view screen flickered, and Freya's breath caught in her throat. The alien that appeared had those same eyes from her vision, vertical pupils surrounded by iridescent blue. Its skin shimmered with subtle patterns that seemed to shift as it moved. "Greetings, representatives of Earth." It spoke in perfect, unaccented English. "I am Ambassador Novak of the Kurulan Collective." Director Price stepped forward with practiced diplomacy, but the ambassador's gaze fixed on Freya. "You," Novak said, those haunting eyes widening. "You've been hearing us." Freya felt the room spin slightly as everyone turned to stare at her. The connection between them hummed like an electric current. "How is this possible?" Price demanded. "Some minds resonate across space," Novak explained, never looking away from Freya. "Extremely rare. But when it happens, it creates a bridge between worlds." Freya stepped forward despite protocol. "What does it mean?" "It means," Novak said softly, "that our meeting was inevitable. Emissary of the Void, the diplomatic station orbiting Proxima Centauri b wasn't designed for comfort. Its sterile corridors and utilitarian meeting rooms emphasized function over aesthetics. A neutral ground where humanity and the Kurulans could begin formal relations. Yet even here, the connection between Freya and Ambassador Novak grew stronger. "You're distracted again," Director Price noted as they prepared for the 3rd day of negotiations. "I need your focus, Nakamura. The trade agreements won't translate themselves." Freya nodded, but her mind kept drifting to the strange images Novak shared during their telepathic exchanges, crystal cities beneath twin moons. Beings of light dancing through nebulae, and histories so ancient they made human civilization seem like a fleeting moment. "The ambassador has requested your presence," Tenzin announced, entering their prep room. Alone, Price's face hardened. "Absolutely not. All meetings follow established protocols." "With respect," Freya interjected, "we need to understand this connection. It could be the key to successful relations between our species." After a tense debate, Price reluctantly agreed, but insisted on monitoring from the adjacent room. The meeting chamber where Novak waited was dimly lit, filled with a thin mist that smelled faintly of ozone and sea salt. The ambassador's tall, slender form emerged from the shadows, those vertical pupilled eyes glowing softly. "Your thoughts are troubled," Novak said. Voice melodic with subharmonics human vocal cords couldn't reproduce.
Ah.
"This connection between us sits overwhelming," Freya admitted. "I feel like I'm drowning in memories that aren't mine." Novak moved closer, long fingers extending but not quite touching her. "Our species evolved differently, but consciousness recognizes itself across forms. Your mind is compatible with ours in ways we didn't think possible. Is that why your delegation arrived early? You sensed me." "Yes. For centuries, we believed such connections were legends from our ancient past." Novak's skin rippled with patterns that Freya somehow understood, expressed wonder. "Then I heard you calling across the void." Their conversation flowed between spoken words and shared thoughts, boundaries blurring until Freya barely noticed when Walter, the intimidating Carillon security chief, interrupted them. "The humans are growing suspicious," Walter warned, casting a distrustful glance at Freya. "This prolonged private contact violates protocols." "Our old protocols are insufficient for this new reality," Novak replied firmly. Later, as Freya briefed her team, she carefully omitted the depth of her connection with Novak, how their minds had briefly merged, sharing emotions that transcended language. "They're hiding something," Pavel insisted. "These telepathic connections conveniently bypass all our security measures. Or they're the reason we've managed more diplomatic progress in 3 days than expected in 3 months, Freya countered. That night, alone in her quarters, Freya felt Novak's consciousness gently touch her mind. "There is danger," came the thought. "Some, among both our kinds, fear what we represent." "What do we represent?" Freya wondered. The answer flooded her with images of worlds bridged, civilizations intertwined, and something more intimate to beings from different stars finding unexpected harmony. "Something unprecedented," Novak responded. "Something beautiful." Freya's heart raced as she sensed Novak's feelings, curiosity, hope, and a growing affection that mirrored her own. Despite the vast differences in their biology and culture, something profound was developing between them, something neither their protocols nor their species had prepared them for. Forbidden protocols, 2 weeks into negotiations, the diplomatic team relocated to the Carillon vessel for cultural exchange. Freya marveled at the ship's organic architecture corridors that shifted subtly as if breathing. Walls embedded with bioluminescent patterns that responded to emotional states. Unlike the stark human station, everything here felt alive. "Remember your training," Director Price cautioned as they settled into their quarters. "Observe everything, report any anomalies, and maintain professional distance." Professional distance. Freya almost laughed at the impossibility of that directive when her mind regularly intertwined with Novak's. Their telepathic connection had deepened, allowing them to share not just thoughts, but sensations, the taste of morning dew on Novak's homeworld, the warmth of Earth's sun on Freya's skin. "You seem troubled," Novak observed when they met in the ship's arboretum, surrounded by plants that responded to sound by changing colors. "My superiors are growing concerned about our connection," Freya admitted. "There's talk of replacing me with someone less ... involved." Novak's skin darkened with agitation. "The Collective's council shares similar concerns. Walter has formally requested I recuse myself from further negotiations." They stood beneath a canopy of silver-leafed flora that shimmered in response to their conversation. Novak's fingers hesitantly brushed against Freya's, the first physical contact they'd shared. The touch sent shivers of electric connection cascading through her mind. "They fear what they don't understand," Novak murmured. "But this bridge between us may be more important than any trade agreement." Later that evening, reviewing security feeds in his office, Pavel frowned at the footage of Freya and Novak in the Arboretum. "This is getting dangerous," he told Price. "She's compromised." "Or she's our greatest asset," Price countered. "The Carillons have shared more technology specifications with us in 2 weeks than we anticipated in a year." "And what are they getting in return?" Pavel demanded. What neither of them knew was that Freya and Novak had discovered something disturbing. evidence that extremist factions within both delegations were sabotaging the diplomatic mission through their telepathic connection. They'd pieced together fragments of conversations, encrypted messages, and suspicious activities pointing to a coordinated effort to derail peaceful relations. That night, Freya slipped away from human quarters to meet Novak in a secluded section of the ship. The ambassador's quarters were bathed in soft blue light that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. "We need to be careful," Novak whispered, though they could have communicated silently. Sometimes speaking aloud felt more intimate, more real. "Walter suspects I've been sharing restricted information with you. Have you?" Freya asked, stepping closer. "Yes, just as you've shared your delegation's private concerns with me." They stood inches apart, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings that flowed freely through their mental connection. "This was never part of the mission," Freya said softly. "The most significant discoveries rarely follow planned protocols," Novak replied, reaching up to trace the contour of Freya's face with long, slender fingers. When their minds merged this time, it was deeper than before, joining that transcended species barriers, flooding both with sensations neither had words to describe. Physical and mental boundaries blurred as they shared memories, hopes, and a growing desire that neither had anticipated. "We need to expose the conspiracy," Freya whispered against Novak's shoulder later. "Before it's too late," yes, Novak agreed. "But we must be cautious. What exists between us now makes us both vulnerable and powerful." Clips of worlds, the conspiracy revealed itself sooner than expected. During a formal dinner celebrating the first signed accord between humans and Carolans, alarms blared throughout the ship. Emergency containment fields activated, sealing off sections and trapping diplomats in separate areas. "This is Walter," announced the security chief's voice over the communication system. "We have detected sabotage in our primary life support systems. For safety, all human delegates must return to their vessel immediately." Freya, separated from her team during the chaos, felt Novak's panic brush against her mind. "Don't believe him," came the urgent thought. "Walter and Pavel are working together. The sabotage is their doing, through their connection." Novak shared glimpses of intercepted communications and secret meetings between the two security chiefs. Their plan was elegant in its simplicity: create an incident serious enough to terminate negotiations, but not so catastrophic as to spark immediate conflict. Freya navigated the shifting corridors of the Caroline ship, avoiding security checkpoints. She needed to reach the environmental control center, where Novak was attempting to override Walter's commands. "They've locked me out of the systems," Novak communicated, "and they're venting atmosphere in Section 7, where most of your delegation is gathered." Cold determination flooded Freya's veins. Using the ship's layout that Novak had shared through their mental link, she made her way to a maintenance access point. The Carulan biotechnology responded differently to her human touch, but she followed Novak's mental guidance, coaxing the living circuits to open alternative pathways. When she finally reached the environmental center, she found Novak surrounded by 3 hostile Carulan security officers. "Step away from the controls," Ambassador Walter commanded, his skin pulsing with aggressive patterns. "Your unauthorized connection with the human has compromised your judgment." "Your xenophobia is what's compromised," Novak replied calmly. "Along with your oath to the collective?" Freya remained hidden, observing the standoff while reaching out to Tenzin through her communicator. "Get Director Price to Security Station 4, she whispered. "Pavel is working with the Carulan extremists. I'm sending proof to your device now." As tension escalated in the control room, Freya felt her connection with Novak intensified, their minds synchronizing with unprecedented clarity. Without speaking, they formulated a plan. Now, Novak thought. And they moved simultaneously. Freya disabled the room's lighting while Novak used bioluminescent signals to disorient the security team. In the confusion, they managed to reach the environmental controls and restore proper life support throughout the ship. "This is Ambassador Novak," they announced shipwide. "Security Chief Walter has been relieved of duty pending investigation for sabotage and conspiracy against the diplomatic mission." Similar announcements echoed through the human delegation as Director Price confronted Pavel with the evidence Freya had provided. Hours later, with the immediate crisis contained, Freya and Novak found themselves alone in the ship's observation dome. Through the transparent ceiling, stars shimmered against the velvet backdrop of space. "I'll separate us after this," Freya said quietly. "Both sides will insist on it." Novak's fingers intertwined with hers, a gesture they had both come to cherish. "Perhaps officially, but they cannot sever what exists between our minds." "What happens now? To the negotiations? To us?" "That," Novak replied, pulling her closer until their foreheads touched, "depends on how brave we're willing to be." Their minds merged once more, sharing not just thoughts, but the full spectrum of emotions: fear, hope, desire, and something deeper that transcended their different biologies, but felt unmistakably like love. Synchronous orbits. 6 months after the conspiracy was exposed, the Proxima Centauri station had been transformed. What began as a utilitarian diplomatic outpost had evolved into the first permanent joint settlement between humans and Karulans. Curved Karulan architecture blended with practical human engineering, creating spaces where both species could comfortably coexist. Freya stood at the viewport of her new quarters, watching the blue-green planet below. Her official title was now Interspecies Communications Director, but everyone understood her true role as the bridge between worlds. "You're brooding again," Tenzin observed, joining her at the window. "The Council approved the Joint Research Initiative. That's a victory worth celebrating." "I know," Freya smiled, though her thoughts were elsewhere. Since the crisis, her connection with Novak had been carefully monitored, studied, and ultimately sanctioned, but with restrictions that kept them physically separated for weeks at a time. "The ambassador shuttle is docking," Tenzin mentioned casually, though the knowing look in his eyes suggested he understood exactly what Novak's return meant too. The diplomatic reception that evening was a formal affair with representatives from both species, celebrating the ratification of their third major accord. Director Price, now elevated to Earth's chief ambassador, delivered a speech about historic cooperation through the crowded reception hall. Freya felt Novak before seeing the ambassador, that familiar consciousness reaching for hers like magnets finding alignment. "I've missed you," came the thought, warm with affection. 3 weeks is too long," Freya responded silently, when they finally stood face to face. Maintaining professional decorum became an exercise in willpower. The connection between them hummed with 3 weeks of separation, thoughts and feelings eager to be shared. "Ambassador Nakamura," Novak greeted formally, though their eyes conveyed much more. "The collective has approved your proposal for citizen exchange programs." "Excellent news, Ambassador Novak. Perhaps we could discuss implementation details privately later, away from diplomatic scrutiny." They walked through the station's botanical garden, a space designed with elements from both worlds. Here, earth roses grew alongside crystalline Carolan flora, different, yet harmonious. "The scientists have a name for what we share now," Freya said, her fingers entwined with Novak's. "They're calling it neural resonance symbiosis." "Such clinical terms for something so profound," Novak replied. Skin shimmering with patterns of amusement and affection, their relationship had become something unprecedented, a template for what connection between their species could mean. While physical differences remained challenging, their mental and emotional bond transcended biological barriers. "I've brought something for you," Novak said, producing a small crystal sphere that glowed with internal light. "On my homeworld, this is given to those with whom we wish to share a lifelong connection." Freya took the crystal, feeling it warm to her touch. As she held it, images flowed from Novak's mind to hers, a future of possibilities, of worlds joined not just by treaties, but by understanding, of two beings finding ways to build a life together despite having evolved under different stars. "Is this a proposal?" she asked, half joking, yet deeply moved. "It's an invitation," Novak answered, "to explore what no human in Carolan have before." That night, as they shared both mental and physical intimacy, adapting, discovering, creating something new between them, Freya understood that their connection had implications far beyond diplomacy. They were pioneers mapping the frontier of interspecies relationships, proving that differences could become strengths when approached with openness and courage. "What we have," Novak whispered as they lay together beneath the stars, "is the future."
And Freya?
Her mind blissfully entwined with her alien lovers, knew it was true. Their resonance across galaxies had begun as whispers, between stars, but had become a symphony one that would guide both their species toward a harmonious future neither could have imagined alone.